welcome. This is a no-bake version of how to make Play-Doh. This is an easy and safe method to make with your children or your child. I'm going to place a warning right here in the beginning of this tutorial. If you or your child or your friend has a wheat allergy, then they do not want to be playing with or making the Play-Doh, as a good half of the ingredients are wheat. It will be a bit messy, but so is any good thing that you make for yourself. For this, we will need a bowl of water, a table to work on, a tray or newspaper, a spoon or your hands, 1 cup of flour, half a cup of salt, half a cup of warm to hot water, 1 tablespoon of cream of tartar for added elasticity, as well as your food coloring. I happen to have the basic food coloring as well as the neon food colorings. We want to combine all of the dry ingredients first. 1 cup of flour, half a cup of salt, and 1 tablespoon of cream of tartar. If we have any lumps, we want to smush them out. I have already made 3 prior batches to this, so I am just at my last half cup of salt. It is a bit lumpy from the humidity, but it'll break up quite easily. This will also help to mix the ingredients around. Then we want to add our water. I like to keep mine in a large bowl that I ran from the tub. I always run the hot water. That way it'll be warm by the time I get to use it. And that's a half cup of hot to warm water. We want to mix our ingredients now with the half a cup of hot water. If you have any dry or visible ingredients left, you want to add just a small bit of water to allow the rest of the dry ingredients to mix with the wet ball of Play-Doh. If you happen to be working with a larger bowl, you can be a little bit faster than I am about this. I just happen to use a low bowl, so that way you guys can see what I'm doing here. And with the little bowl, I kind of have to go a little bit slower, that way the flour doesn't go flying everywhere. Well, it looks like I have a little bit of dry ingredients left, so just a small bit of water added to that, and that should take care of the rest of the dry ingredient within this bowl. So I'm going to scrape around the edges, and I'm just going to mix it right into the middle. Now that we have our ball that is a nice doughy consistency, we want to place it onto our table with a newspaper on it, or we can grab a tray to use. I decided to use a tray for this video so it would be a little bit easier for me. I found the newspaper method a little bit tedious. You're going to want to place a little bit of flour on your workstation. This will help you work with the dough, as at this moment it will be of a tacky consistency. It's going to want to stick to your fingers at this point. You're also going to want to keep your bag of flour handy so that you can grab small bits to keep the dough from sticking to your hands. I do apologize about my tray sliding all around. Roll the big ball of dough around in the flour that you have put into your workstation until you get a nice ball of dough that has almost no tacky feeling to it. Once you have that consistency, that's about the type of dough consistency that you want. You want it to be able to grab at some flour still, but you don't want it to be sticking so much to your fingers that it's pasty. Now, we want to divide our dough up into small balls. I usually make a log first, and then I pull from that. My first time around, I made 3 big balls of dough. I found it was much harder to distribute the colors. My first batch was also really stiff. If your batch is really stiff in the beginning, you need to add a bit more water to your dough, as well as a bit more flour so that it's not a wet mass. But this will help even the consistency out. Never give up after your first try. It'll always get easier after you do it the first time. We will first start with making the white ball of Play-Doh. For this, we just need to add more flour to it. Work the flour in until the dough is not tacky at all, but is moldable instead. When I was a kid, I always wanted white Play-Doh, and I always wondered why they didn't have any. But nowadays, they actually do have white Play-Doh, but we're gonna make our own too. So just add a little bit of flour to your hands and just fold the dough. You want to do this until you have no tacky consistency, and so it's nice and moldable. It's going to look a little off-white, but that's okay. Now onto our colors. There's a bunch of ways that you can color your Play-Doh with different color things. I'm personally using the assorted variety that you get from the store in the cake section. You can also use kool-aid packets. You can use the dye kits from Easter egg kits. You can use just about any kind of food coloring, providing that you can mix and fold it inside of the dough. But yeah, it's pretty simple. So you want to take your food coloring and you just want to add a little bit of color to it. A little bit of color goes a long way with a small bit of ball of dough. I have been using roughly 3 to 4 drops of food coloring per ball. And you just want to fold it in on itself, and if there's any hair or anything, which like I just pulled out at the moment ago, just pull the hair out if there's any that happen to fall onto it, and just fold the dough over onto itself with the color so it's nice and in the middle, so that way it starts to spread throughout the dough. That way it's more on the dough than it is on your hands. You are going to get a little bit of color on your hands, but it's really not going to be that bad. Just make sure to keep a little bit of flour on your hands to put it on the dough, so that way you're making it less tacky. Because the more color that you put onto it, the wetter it's going to get. So you want to take and add the flour to make it not wet again. But just roll it around, knead it, fold it, play with the Play-Doh, and then you will have your color. So our first one that we made is purple. And onto our next, you just want to fold the dough out a little bit, put some flour onto both sides, again add your color, and fold, and again smush it all around, and just fold it all around. And eventually all the color will come through into your ball of dough and you'll have your color. Right here we have nice canary yellow from the original variety sort pack. As always, if you feel that it is too tacky, add a little bit of flour. If your dough starts to get stiff, add a little bit of water, not a lot. And then again, add some flour to dry that out a bit. As you get used to it, you'll develop a little bit of a pattern that'll help you go by quicker. For me, it's making the small balls and folding them up or rolling it up and then squishing the color around on the inside. Now, if you're doing this with other people, it's going to go by a lot quicker. You can get the whole ball of dough made out and split up, and everybody can take a couple different balls of dough, add color to it themselves, and it'll be done a lot quicker. My daughter loves to make the dough with me, and she loves to squish the color into it. So it's definitely a very kid-friendly activity. And in the end, after all the Play-Doh is done with, she usually ends up making a rainbow out of the entire thing, which is how the rainbow Play-Doh is right now. My friends, have rainbow Play-Doh at the house. But yeah, just squish it all together and you will get your colors. So our next one is a nice blue. And that one's from the regular assorted pack. Now, this neon pink that comes from the neon variety and the red that comes from the regular assorted variety have a tendency of being very similar in shades of color. I suggest if you want a more noticeable pink that you only do a few color drops, and if you please excuse my cat who is not being so nice by meowing in the background. With the red you want to use a little bit more red than you do when you use the pink for the pink. You want your red to be darker so it shows, and when you're pink you want it to be lighter so it shows pink.
Here, Mom.
And we're gonna do our green next. And you'll notice that after a bit you'll start to get like a doughy film on your hands, and sometimes that will mix into your dough and it'll kind of take away from the color that you want to do. So if you see that you're starting to get a dough-like film on your hands, then just take the time to rub your hands back and forth over your work area and until the dough is off of your hands, and then just push it off to the side and you'll be as right as rain again, and you'll be able to make your next ball of dough without contaminating it with any other colors. Your assorted regular blue and your assorted neon blues are going to be rather similar as well. As I just did the regular normal amount of dye that I usually do on my balls of Play-Doh here, they're gonna look pretty similar. I should have gone darker with the darker regular assorted blue, and I could have gone probably with less color on the neon assorted variety blue, and then they would have been a bit different, a bit more noticeably different. It's really only a shade different. When you have them right together you can tell the difference the best, but either way you're going to end up with two different blues. They're going to look very similar depending on how much dye you use, or they're going to look very different depending on how much dye you use. So here you see me brushing my hands off because I had way too much green on my hands, and I'm getting ready to do the neon yellow. If you don't do that, your neon yellow is going to come out more of a neon green. Yeah. So a little bit more dough on your workstation if you run out, a little bit more on your hands. Spread your dough out, push it around, get ready to put your color on. I've probably sat there and rolled the dough around a bit more than I needed to, but I like to be consistent. I'm actually sitting here playing with a piece of gray Play-Doh that my daughter passed over to me here a moment ago. She's managed to make a nice, actually medium gray. But yeah, so just never mind that little bit there. Just taking my time, trying to think of if there's anything else I need to let you guys know while I sit here voicing over my video. So I wanted to make sure that I didn't miss anything while I was making the Play-Doh and trying to talk to you guys at the same time. Sorry about that, it's my daughter sneezing, trying to be loud. This last one here, I'm actually trying to attempt to make a brown with it, although in the end it came out to be a very, very dark color. At the time I thought it was a very greenish brown, because I just kind of added a whole bunch of colors all together. I was trying to go for a brownish black color, and I ended up succeeding in getting actually a pretty dark black in the end. And it took me stepping away from it for a moment to realize I actually had got a pretty decent black color, which is probably why I have a pretty decent gray color here in my hands while I'm speaking to you. But yeah, so just play around with it, you know, just mix colors, experiment. As always, after the Play-Doh fun making is done and the children or yourself or your friends are even playing with the Play-Doh, don't be afraid to mix stuff together. You know, that's what Play-Doh's for. It's for sculpting and molding. Just play with it. I mean, most young children are just going to smush it all together till it's a rainbow, and that's what my daughter did and her friends did earlier the other day, pretty much right after I got done making this Play-Doh. So just experiment and have lots of fun. This took me, myself alone, about roughly a little over 20 minutes to make this entire batch of Play-Doh, but I was also trying to make sure that you could all see what I was doing and know the little ins and outs that I've used, and you know, not just give you the typical 2 or 3 colors being shown to you, to show you that you can actually do much more and many more, and that there's lots that you can do with. That was wrong. My last one I made was a red. Now I am appearing to make the black one. That is what it turns out to be in the end, is black. So it's pretty safe to say, if you're going for a dark color, the more color you use, the darker it's going to get, especially if you're using most of the colors from your packets. And that's my phone. Sorry about my phone there. apparently I still was not satisfied with the color, so just add a little bit more yellow to it. Looking at the screen here, and that's a pretty solid dark, almost greenish black right there. Probably could have gone for no more color in that, but either way, that's what happens. And you'll end up with your fingers dyed for a little bit. My fingers are still dyed today. It's been 2 days later. Oh my god, I am really loading it on. And this is how I got so much red all over my fingers. So that's what we have. There's our Play-Doh. We have 10 colors. If you have any suggestions or comments as to what could be done, or any colors to make, or anything like that, just comment. If you enjoy my tutorial, I